at the heels of the SEC media days, I mean, I think the Auburn fan base is kind of excited. It just came off like Hugh Freeze just had been waiting to give this particular interview at the SEC media days. It looked like he felt really good about the roster that they've developed with the players that obviously that they brought in, some blue chip players. And when you really look at it, you got a lot of players who played at winning high schools, and that thing starts to become pretty magnetic, and it creates a mentality. It creates a culture of winning, and these guys don't want to lose. I mean, they don't expect to lose because your entire high school career you've been a winner. All right, guys, go ahead and subscribe to the Auburn Fanatics podcast with your boy Vernon Speak Sports Auburn. Um, like the video. Matter of fact, it doesn't cost anything. Doesn't cost anything to like the video or give an impression. It doesn't cost anything to give a comment. I want y'all guys to flood the comment section with your thoughts on Auburn football at this point, especially now that Hugh Freeze has addressed the media and he did it in an honest and a really candid kind of way. Was kind of comedic at times about even some of the questions that he was being asked. You had questions about Lane Kiffin. What's your relationship like with Lane Kiffin? He went back and forth about how he has a history with one of Lane Kiffin's brothers from a coaching standpoint, how he has a great relationship with his family. Also, there were crazy questions about Caleb Wooten. What do you think he's going to do at Arkansas, which I thought had nothing to do with Auburn football media days. It's like people are trying to poke him to say some things that are going to be noteworthy on social media. But he just straight up didn't fall for it. And I applaud Hugh Freeze for that. He also mentioned the quarterback situation, which we're going to talk about in this video. Auburn has really struggled at the quarterback position for quite some time. That dates all the way back to 2022, I think. Auburn had some opportunity with Bo Nix. Bo Nix actually was on a roll. He was starting to come onto his own, but then he got injured and then had a chance to kind of reflect. Got on the sideline, had a chance to reflect about his future, whether he wanted to remain on the Auburn squad. He had to roll with his head and not his heart. Guy grew up an Auburn fan. Guy grew up a Cam Newton fan. Winds up going to Oregon and absolutely balls out, and he's still doing it in the NFL. And I'm pretty sure when you reflect back on Bo Nix, he'll probably say that was the best decision that he ever made. He was very comfortable out at Oregon, set some records at Oregon, got Oregon in a position his senior year where they had the opportunity to make the college football playoff. And, I want to say that was a very pivotal point in Bo Nix's career, but also from a quarterback standpoint, one of the downfalls of Auburn from talent wise at the quarterback position, because Bo Nix, although the offensive line wasn't all that stellar at Auburn, he found ways to make things work. Unlike Peyton Thorne, who came on to Auburn from Michigan after having that one great season at Michigan State, where he threw for 3,240 yards. He averaged about 8.3 yards per play, had 27 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Kind of fell off the next year because the wide receiver position fell off at Michigan State that next year. Now, onboarding at Auburn, really tough year that first year for Peyton Thorne. Peyton Thorne only threw for 1,755 yards. Now, if you're going to win in the SEC, or if you're going to win in Power 5 football, Power 4, whatever they call it now, 6.6 yards per pass is just not going to make it. It's just not going to work. You have to be in that 8.5, 9, maybe even pushing the envelope to about 10 yards every time you throw the football in the way that teams score now. And he just didn't do it. Now, Peyton Thorne didn't necessarily have the wide receiver core that he needed that first year. I mean, it was pretty rough for Peyton Thorne, depending on Shane Hooks and other guys like that, Camden Brown, and, those guys that weren't necessarily absolutely terrible, but they weren't elite either. But as we talk about the quarterback position, Hugh Freeze thinks that he's found something with Jackson Arnold to the point where he thinks that he might be able to do some retention and actually do some personnel retention if he's able to do what he thinks he's going to do with Jackson Arnold. Hugh Freeze thinks that Jackson Arnold, if everything falls into place that the way he thinks is going to fall into place, he feels like Jackson Arnold will be a one and done quarterback at Auburn. How does this work well in Hugh Freeze looking at the future? Well, he has one of the top rated quarterbacks out of high school in Deuce Knight out of Mississippi, Lucedale, Mississippi, who was highly recruited by Notre Dame. As a matter of fact, he was committed to Notre Dame for a really long time in his recruiting process. Auburn was actually able to flip Deuce Knight in probably, I'd say, for Hugh Freeze, one of the best flips that he's had as an Auburn Tigers head coach. But here's the problem he has now. Deuce Knight wants to play. Deuce Knight wants to play very soon. And how is he going to pull this off if you have Jackson Arnold there another year? You know what I'm saying? So he has to figure out a way. Now, I'm not saying, it just sounds like from a personnel development standpoint that the best position possible for him to pull this off is Jackson Arnold. Either one has to have a very stellar season to where he's a one and done quarterback, or Jackson Arnold stinks it up so bad that he's forced to play Deuce Knight, which is not the best case scenario for the Auburn Tigers anyway this year. This is a pivotal season for Auburn. Auburn needs an experienced quarterback that has played in the games against Alabama, that has played against, some of the top tier teams in the SEC. He needs Jackson Arnold to have a very good season. Now, I think Jackson Arnold can do it. Why? Because Peyton Thorne kind of sort of did it. I don't think Peyton Thorne was the best fit for Auburn. However, Hugh Freeze showed that he's able to maximize a quarterback's potential. Although he didn't have the offensive line that Peyton Thorne needed, he didn't quite have all the receiver talent developed. The receiver talent is there, but the receiver talent wasn't as developed as it's going to be this year. Because Auburn has a situation where, one, you've improved the offensive tackle position, which was a thorn in Auburn's side last year. Constant pressure against a guy that, is mobile, but at the point of attack, mobility in the pocket wasn't necessarily Peyton Thorne's strong point. So you improve that. You improve part one of what you need in a good quarterback. Then you improve even more part two. One, Cam Coleman will be a much better, much more experienced as a wide receiver. He came on a little bit late last season, had that great game against University of Louisiana Monroe, and was one of the top freshman wide receivers down the stretch in the country. You team that up with Malcolm Simmons, who I think is going to be a dark horse as one of the better wide receivers on the team. Horatio Fields from Wake Forest. I really like him as not only a possession receiver, but he can get you something extra. He can make the defensive secondary a little bit nervous. And then you have Eric Singleton Jr., who is lightning fast. He's lightning fast. He can create separation. I think he's just a little bit better than Keandre Lambert-Smith. Now, that's another thing. Keandre Lambert-Smith came to Auburn and put himself in a position to where now he's in the NFL. Might not have been in the NFL had he stayed at Penn State with the concepts that they run there. Came to Auburn, took one under the chin, didn't make it to a bowl game, but increased his skill as a wide receiver. So here's the thing though. You look at Peyton Thorne's progress as an Auburn Tiger. Year 1, not so great. Year 2, catastrophically better. He threw the ball more. He had a increase in completion percentage. He went from 61.1 to 62.8. A lot of y'all might think, well, that's not significant, but yeah, it kind of sort of is. You complete the ball more than you did. Why? Because you have better wide receivers. You've learned the system a little bit more. You complete over 1,000 yards more in year 2 than in year 1. Now, why am I saying? You're probably thinking, Vernon, why are you saying all this? Well, the reason why I'm saying all of this is because Hugh Freeze needs Jackson Arnold to have a very, very astounding good season at Auburn this year, to the point where you utilize his services, you get maybe have the opportunity to make it to the playoffs, you put him in a position to where he's one and done at Auburn. He gets drafted maybe, I'm projecting, if he has the season that I think he will have, considering all the quarterbacks that are, available in this draft cycle, college football wise. I mean, he could be looking at, early second round, maybe more. Maybe more. This doesn't seem to be a quarterback heavy draft cycle, and that's what he could be looking at. Then you look at the fact that you go from, as a Peyton Thorne, you go from 6.6 yards per play to 8.6 yards per play, meaning you almost throw a first down every time you throw the football, which is significant considering what he had year 1. 21 touchdowns that year. That's 5 more than the year before. Also, interception ratio, he had 10 in 2023. He had 9 in 2024, but that's inflated by games where he had multiple interceptions early in the season. So he kind of channeled that back towards the end of the season to where he was a little bit more, a little bit less error prone as a quarterback. So when we look at this, guys, I think Auburn is looking for that buffer in between having a quarterback at Jackson Arnold that you absolutely needed, because you lost Walker White and you didn't really have in that quarterback room what you needed to be successful in year 3, in a year that you absolutely have to be successful. I mean, a 7-6 season is just not going to be the move for Auburn this year. And he even said, like, look, if Jackson is having the year that we all expect and hope he has, it sure be nice to convince Deuce Knight to just play a few games, get himself ready for next year. He says, Deuce Knight, his ceiling is high, very high. Guess what he's saying in saying all that? We need to try to figure out a way to retain this guy. Because if we don't find out a way to effectively and productively get Jackson Arnold to have the type of season that he should have, considering all the weapons he has around, considering the running back field that he has, the wide receiver core that he has, the offensive line that he has, and the schedule setup that he has. You got Georgia and Alabama at home. Yeah, you gotta travel out to Oklahoma. You have to travel out someplace. But if you get past that initial stretch to where you can beat Baylor, you can beat Oklahoma, You can figure out a way to beat Arkansas. Maybe, we're not even figuring it out. You just straight up beat them. Then you take on a Georgia team at home, preferably undefeated, and you figure out a way to pull that off because Hugh Freeze said it in the conference, in the SEC media days. These games are going to be close. He knows something about his roster to where he feels like games against Alabama and games against Georgia are going to be close, but I think he just has to pull it off. This is my time here. What do y'all think about Jackson Arnold? Do y'all think this is kind of a chess move by Hugh Freeze to where, hey, I got to get this guy successful and I got to not necessarily get him out of there, but I got to make some room for Deuce Knight from a personnel standpoint because I recruited this guy out of high school to be the future. I didn't recruit this guy out of high school for him to get frustrated by lack of playing time and transfer out. Let me know what y'all think. I need y'all to flood the comment section, like the video, comment, and subscribe. It doesn't cost anything for you to do that. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger. War, damn Eagle. Looking forward to a much more successful season from the Tigers. Look forward to a lot of y'all's comments. Definitely appreciate y'all's support over the years. War, damn Eagle.